If you are here to talk about Dave's PROFiLiX solution, you are in the right place. We still have a couple people filing in, so we'll give it another 3 or 4 minutes here before we get started. Another minute or two and we will get started. So welcome.
Someone's got their hand up already, Jarian. Not even begun.
What's that?
Someone's got their hand up already. The question already. I'm joking. There's
Oh,
someone.
okay. I was like, I don't see anyone in the QA or in the chat yet.
Yeah.
All right, we're starting to settle in here. So we will go ahead and get things rolling. So welcome to the World of EUC Tech Insights webinar. We are going to talk about an awesome tool that Dave has made, the PROFiLiX community tool. So Dave Brett is here to go over that and give you all the information and some demos. I will be here riding shotgun and monitoring the chat and the questions. If you have any questions, please use the question and answer utility, and we will look at those and get to those during the webinar. And without further ado, I am going to hand this over to Dave Brett.
Righty. You see that right, Joe?
Yep, looks good.
Lovely. Right, let me just get this going. Right, thanks very much for having me. Kind of looking forward to this, also a little bit nervous about it because it's sort of putting stuff out there I'm not normally so comfortable doing. I'm normally doing other bits and bobs, but yeah, here to talk about PROFiLiX, or what was EUC Profile Buddy. We'll figure out why it is what it is over the next hour or so. So just what I'm going to talk about, there's an agenda first. Just a quick intro, then what it is. So what PROFiLiX is, where it started, what it does, and then how to get it. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. If you do have anything, just chime in. I'm more than happy to be interrupted by Jarian, as he well knows. So if you've got anything to ask while we're going along, then feel free to just hop in and ask it. So a quick intro. My name is Dave Brett. I'm based in the UK in a little village called Liphook. I work as a senior solutions architect with Jarian at Nutanix. Been there just over 2 years now. I'm a current Citrix CTP and an ex-Nutanix NTC. You're not allowed to be one and work at the same company. So when I joined, I had to relinquish that. I've been in and around end user computing and EUC for a long time. Prior to that, I was a developer long time ago, many moons ago. But I'm still a bit of a wannabe code monkey. I like writing scripts. We do that a lot of work, do a lot of automation and stuff like that. And this kind of was born from that enjoyment. There's a website out there in my Twitter handle if you want it. So let's just touch on what it is. So PROFiLiX is in itself is a user profile management tool. It's split into two pieces. There's a client side and then a server side. The client side sits inside a virtual machine. Doesn't need to be a virtual machine, just any Windows VM or any Windows machine. It now has limited functionality in the client side piece. And I'll explain why that's been done that way further down the line. And then there's a web side, which is a web server, is there for central reporting on user profile data and on task execution. It's a community tool. It's free. It's, I wrote this as a kind of a pet project, and it's there to be used, manipulated. You can fork the code, do whatever you want with it, really. It's in a working state, but if there's any improvements, like we'll touch on later down the line, feel free to suggest and/or contribute. And finally, it got rebranded from EUC Profile Buddy, and I'll explain why in a little while. So a little bit about where it started first. So this guy is the reason it started. A lot of you know him. He's a well-known guy. He's also one of mine and Jaren's colleagues, James Kindon, or Kindo. We were on a meeting one day, and I said to him, mate, can you think of a nice little side project that I can do? We spend hours and hours looking at EUC and like I said, writing scripts and stuff. And I wanted to write something like a Windows app or something in a full IDE. So I just asked him, is there anything you can think of that might be good? And he was like, yeah, how about something that can manage like the user profile file system, kind of like TreeView used to be. Free little tool where you can just trawl through the directories and find out where the bloat is in the profile. So then I was like, that sounds good. So I went off and then wrote EUC Profile Buddy. It took a little while. It was a Windows Forms app. Put it out there, put it up on GitHub. It was a public repo. Wrote it in VB.NET, sitting on top of the .NET framework. Was happy, put it out there. It worked. It was pretty good. Kind of did what we sort of set out to do. And then this guy got hold of it, Remco. And he sent me a WhatsApp message, why are you coding like it's the 1980s? And he was like, I was like, okay, what's that mean? And then Mr. Morgan got in touch and said he would lend us a hand. He said he would offer to do some code reviews and stuff like that. I said I was thinking about C#. Read there wasn't too much of a difference, but since my background was in Visual Basic, I decided to stick with that. And then he was like, well, let's see what we can do. And then he started giving me a hand and mentoring. And we had meetings like once a week, and he was like directing me in the path from Visual Basic or VB.NET over to C#, also on the .NET framework. And during that mentoring, he like threw in the word full stack a lot of times. He was like, why don't you look at full stack? Why don't you look at this? And I was like, yeah, kind of want it just a bit of a client app at the minute, but it ended up with this, with the EUC Profile Buddy, refactored everything, learned a hell of a lot, and ended up taking what was there in VB.NET and moving it to C#. And learned, like I said, learned loads on the way. So I learned about like interfaces into classes, talked a lot about unit testing and make sure the code was good, so that any changes we were making in the code, it would flag in a unit test and we'd know that there's a problem there. Some shared libraries, exceptions, lots of exceptions and error handling. And then multi-threading and the await call. So something that helped quite a lot was the nature of what you're doing with a profile is fine when they're new. And we all know, like in the EUC world, when you get a brand new profile, it's small, it's good, you know, you can do things with it quite quickly, but over time that grows. And trying to profile how that looks from a data sizing point of view using a single threaded app, there were issues around, like it would lock up the user interface, for example, and we were shown how to offload those tasks to a separate thread and not block the UI thread and then pull that back in. And it was, you know, it was very valuable. And that's kind of how we ended up down the road of C# and how we ended up with it in its initial incarnation of what it is today. So let's have a quick look at what it does. Like I said, the PROFiLiX client is it's a Windows application that runs within the virtual desktop or a physical machine. A little bit about what it is. So it has a Windows installer package that's developed in Wix, which is a add-on to the .NET framework. It's the same installer that you would see with any other product. Like you get an MSI file, you run through it, and it will install the agent or the client-side component onto a Windows device. The source code is all on GitHub. It's a public repository. It's commented as best as I can. There was a product that Andy showed me. It's called Style Cop, which you can run alongside any or run it in an IDE, and it will force you to comment the code properly while you're writing it. So as you're going through and writing the loops and defining how the product works, it will ensure that it's commented and documented well up front. So we put that in early on, which meant the code was readable and pretty decent. It runs in the user context, and this was something that I initially looked at. Like I thought about maybe running it as a separate service account with elevated rights, so you can kind of do more on the endpoint, but mainly in the initial thing for simplicity, I kept it in the user context, but it also meant that when you were looking at the user profile, so when you log into like an EUC workload, whether you're using like Profile Unity or FSLogix or Citrix Profile Management or a local profile, any of that, when you look at the user profile, generally it's in C users, your username, and then there's a bunch of files and registry keys that you're dealing with and data within that local area. I wanted to be able to deal with that in the same way, regardless of the profile technology that was being used, and look at it as close to a regular sort of Windows profile as I could. And I also wanted to reduce the risk of being able to damage other things on the virtual desktop in this instance. Like I didn't want this app to have the ability to delete system files or you know, change service accounts and stuff like that, mainly because I didn't want the responsibility. I wanted it to be like just run as the user. So whatever the enterprise defines those rights for that user, then this program will have the same access. It runs as a system tray application. There is a UI for it. It's a Windows Forms app for those that do a bit of development. It's not WPF. A straight Windows Forms application, sits on top of .NET. It's currently, now I was asked about doing this in a RDSH environment, which is why it currently is up there in brackets. Right now, it's a one-to-one. So you'd install it on like a Windows 10 single user or Windows 11 single user virtual machine, and then it would run in the user context at logon. Not to say that it can't be edited to run in a multi-user environment, and that is something that I will probably look at in the future, but for this, like as in getting it out there and getting people using it, it wasn't high on the list right off the bat. It's configured via the registry. When the application runs up, there's a small set of registry keys that are created on first launch. And what they do, they'll configure how the client application works. Now, any of these can be delivered via GPP, group policy, or a script or whatever. They're super simple. There's nothing complex in there. And it's just how the app works and what it interacts with. Like I said, it's written in C# now, and it was written and based on the .NET 8 framework. I noticed it was .NET 9, got dropped not so long ago, and I have tested on that, and it's fine. It can run standalone. So, like I said, originally this wasn't going to be a full stack like product. It was never even in my realm of sort of thoughts that I would be able to write something like that. So it was written as a standalone application. It was there for a user to run up and manage their own user profile. So the reason limited functionality is in this part right now is when I first wrote the original EUC profile body in Visual Basic.NET, there was a drop down at the bottom here next to this status bar, which allowed you to select certain actions that you might want to do on your own profile, like reset teams classic, reset browser settings, clear your temp files, stuff like that. But then when we moved away from it just being a client app into there is a server-side component to it, I needed to try and make that the client part as lean as possible, but also as simple as possible, so there was less that could break from a client side. So just having a look at how it looks. This is the client application. That's what it looks like in the system tray. So when you run it normally, just a little file box that sits in your system tray. When you enlarge it or double click on it, this screen on the right here will pop up, which gives you a file browser into your profile. It won't let you navigate outside your profile. So if you try and move up a level to see another user's profile, won't let you do that. You do have these two buttons here, so you can double click on any of the folders and it will drill down or go back to the home, which will go to the root of your user profile. It's got basic data up here. So it'll give you your username, the directory that your profile's in, how big it is, some of your directories that you're using. And then if you click this info button here, then it will show you the details for that. And what this will do, it will go through any of your folder redirections that you have in place and display them, and then it will trawl through the relevant registry keys for the profile technology you're using and display all of that on the left-hand side in a list box, which you can sort. So if you need to know, like if you're on the phone with a service desk and they need to know how your profile is configured, they can just open this, click that button, and then read out the relevant setting back to service desk. There's also a settings option, and there's one option in there that I've put at the minute, which will just clear temp files at startup. Which means as the app is launching, you can define directories that you want ripped out and cleaned at launch. And then for the configuration part, these are all the settings that it will use. It sits in a PROFiLiX key under the current user registry hive. So that clear temp at start, that's just a yes/no value. The logging server, the port and the protocol, and the log level, as well as the log to server, is all about the communication between the client and the server. Right now, it's HTTP. The communication between the two. In the future, I would like to move that to HTTPS. And then you've got the temp data locations, which is by default, it will push these settings down there. You can add anything you want to this. So anything that's relevant to a user profile. So if you have like a line of business application which stores data and app data, but it gets out of control quite quickly. You can just add that directory into here. And then on launch, the app will just clean that out every time and keep it as lean as you possibly can. And then you'll see there's a user profile ID, which is a tag between the client and the profile they're using on the server side, or the profile that's defined on the server side. It means that if you're running, for example, FS Logics on one set of virtual desktops and then CPM or Profile Unity on a different set, then those will be unique values within the backend database for that user, so they can have multiple different profile types. Right, I'll just show you how the client works. So you can see that I've double-clicked on that folder, click the info button. In this case, this is just using a local profile. You can sort these values there. The settings box here you can change the clear temp files at start to on or off. That will save that instantly back. And then you can use this file browser just to drill down and have a look at what's using what. It will natively, it will sort it by size in the display. And then from here, if you want to clean stuff, you can right click and delete anything. And this will work on both files and folders. If you want to rip stuff out of your profile, if the user wants to do it or manage that, you can talk them through it, or they can just do it themselves, which will let them look at the size of different parts of their user profile and also clear that out. That's the client side of it. Has anyone got any questions on that so far?
I've been kind of answering in the chat. So like, as the question about this tool compare with Citrix profile management, what is this tool? And I said it supports file-based and container-based profiles. Yep. Gives you visibility into the profile, etc., to manage the various profile solutions data. And then another one was asked about where does this get installed at? I'm like, just go on the VDI. I'm like, yes, the client goes on the VDI side, can be installed in the base image and rolled out. Yep. Then I also said this also can help you set up exclusions for the various profile solutions as well, because you can see what's doing that, and so you can also set that into your like profile management exclusions or profile Unity or and so forth. So.
Awesome. Okay, so moving on. Let's look at the other side of it, the server side. So this is where things got really interesting from my point of view, because this is something that I hadn't really even considered doing, to be perfectly honest, up front. It was all going to be just a client. So what is the server side? Again, it's a Windows package. It does have an installer. Again, it's a Wix installer, but for all intents and purposes, what you would do is you would download the installer, you'd put it on a Windows server, you'd install the package, and then that will set up the service for you. There's a thing, because it uses .NET 8 and the entity framework, it will seed the database for you at first launch. So when the service starts up, it will then, if there's no database there, or if it's empty, it will seed it. It will also seed the roles, so the roles that there are within the server-side component, as well as a default user in there, so you can log in and do whatever you need. Again, it's all open source. It's all on GitHub. I've written it as well as I can. I'm not a full-time developer, so I'm sure there are some of you out there that will pick holes in it, but it's commented up as best as I can. It will run as a Windows service. It's based on Blazor, which is not the WASM and the server-side Blazor. So it's a new integrated Blazor, which gives you interactivity on the web pages. Again, written in C#, and it's based on .NET 8. I've tested it with .NET 9. It works. The web UI is built in such a way that it will scale with the device that it's using. So if you're using it on a regular Windows machine and you've got a big screen, then it will display like that. As you scale that down, like an iPad or a phone, the UI elements will rearrange themselves and scale up and down, dependent on the device you're using. That's one of the advantages of using Blazor. It's integrated with a .NET Core identity, so you can create user accounts and roles within it. So it has a certain amount of RBAC built in right now. It uses SignalR, which is based on top of WebSockets, which gives you real-time client-server communication. So if you've configured them right, then the PROFiLiX client will talk to the PROFiLiX server and vice versa. So there is it's called a hub. It's set up in between the two components, and you can send data to and from both the client and the server. It has standard and custom actions built in, and it has a full API, which again is something for me personally that I've not done before. But the beauty of that is if you do have this out in your environment and you have all of your users logging on and it's feeding data into this web UI that the service desk has to run certain actions on user profiles. Because there's an API there, you can then pull that information with any like REST query. So you could use PowerShell and invoke a REST method on the API that's there on the server side and pull back information about all of your profiles that you have in your estate. And that's not just one type, that's all of them that are currently supported. The sizing, the temp sizing, any actions that have been taken, and feed that into another product if you deem that fit. This is what it looks like, the server UI. Main bit I want to show you here is the navigation pane on the left. There is another demo of the server side in a minute, but by default, out the box, if you don't have an account, this is what you'll see. So you get a dashboard and then an overview of the user profiles and any tasks that are executed, as well as a login button. Then when you log in, you get access to the help desk, assuming you're in the right role, the API definitions for Swagger and Redoc, and then the system users. So you can add additional users to the environment and let them give them the rights that they need. So rather than walk you through loads of arrows on that, I recorded a video going through this. Okay. So this is the main dashboard. You can see it up there. There's a toggle here for the navigation menu, so you can move that in and out. On the dashboard, you'll see it gives you a summary of the profiles, total profiles in the environment. This only has 2, and the size of the entire profile. So this will total up all the profiles. This will give you a size of the temporary data that's out there. So anything you've defined in the registry is classed as temporary. It will total that up and then size it. And then it will give you a breakdown of the different types of profiles. So currently CPM, FS Logics, Profile Unity, Local and Unknown. And then give you a couple of donut charts with a breakdown. So you can see how your profiles are split up as well as the data sizing. And then it will give you a task summary of anything running or complete. If you click on the actual user profile overview, it gives you the same detail up at the top here, as well as individual details about the profiles. So on here, you'll see username, directories, sizing information and types. And then some basic information about the video they're using to connect with that. That is all searchable. And then the task overview just gives you a list of any tasks that have been executed on the platform. So anything that gets done will get logged back into here using the API, and it will go into the backend database. Once you log in, there is, like I said, there's a default account that's seeded, which is the admin account. Then you get access to these extra parts. These top ones are all the same. So you can have a look at the list of users that are currently in the platform. Then you can add a new one if you wish, which is just literally an email address and password and then a role. You've got reader, help desk, and administrator. which will give you access to certain areas. Reader will give you this general part, and there is a reader section which has nothing in right now, but it's something that we can add things in the future. You can manage your user account on the platform, so profile, password, and then if you don't want your personal data up there, you have to put the delete thing. The Swagger API is a fully functional API, and this is the Swagger interface for it. So as most of you have probably used, there's a try it out button on this. So if you want to test the API against the back end, you can do that. If you prefer using Redoc, see how that's documented, you can use that as well. And then profile actions here, you've got an active user list, which is, so you can only execute the actions on people that are currently logged into the platform or have a live connection. There are a set of default actions in there, and there is the option to create some custom actions as well, which we'll go through in a second.
Hey, quick question. I know, like, as far as the profile side and the actions against the user are all in the user hive and the registry, but is anything on the machine hive as far as settings or anything on the client side?
No, nothing.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just making sure. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that was deliberate, because depending on, like, as you know, I've spent a ton of time in security around EUC, and like if I wanted to write something that touches local machine or anything like that, then there's a whole bunch of other considerations around the context it's running in, what rights the user has, and stuff like that. It was easier to keep it all like local. Right. So with that in mind, I just wanted to do a quick demo of both sides of it, operating side by side, so you can see how that works. I'm using the IDE to launch the app, but as you can see here, this is an empty server side, and there's no definition on the user side. So if we run the app up, you can see it started. And then if we double click that icon, it's the standalone mode, and there's no server configured on it. So it's not connected back to the server side. And if you look in the registry there, you can see everything's configured and the user profile ID is set to 0 because it's not connecting back, so it doesn't need that tie-in. So if we just change the server, the logging server, and point it to the IP address that web server is running up there, and then launch it again. So I made a mistake here, which I didn't re-record, because others will probably make the same one. See there, it still says no PROFiLiX server configured, even though I've got the back end in there, and that's because I forgot to change log to server to yes at the same time. If I switch that to yes, and then launch the app, what you'll see is it's connected to the server. See all the user data is in there. Again, this is just using a local profile at the minute for the demo, but it will let you browse around and do everything that you normally would do from the client. And you can see there, it's now tied that in with a user profile ID. So it's linked that back here. If we go to the server side component, you can see there is a profile. It's got all the data from mine and pushed it back up into there. There's no tasks been run on the platform as yet. We log in as the built-in user account with a super secret password. You can see there's the standard user, and this is all the information again with those user roles. The reader role having that general, and there is, like I said, there is an option to add links into a role that is defined as a reader, if anyone has any specific stuff that they want put in there in the future. So first thing we'll do, if we look at that, so I'm connected over there and you can see that. So if I want to clear the temp files, I select that, click execute, and that's use Signal R to send that down to the client. You can see there's a pop-up there that says the temp files have been cleared. And if you look on the tasks here, there's one complete. It's been executed by an administrator on the server side. And it's executed that on the endpoint for me, and it's completed. So if we want to maybe look at a different one, like Reset Microsoft Edge. Again, this is one of the built-in ones. If we look at Edge right now, it's used that grey colour, and there's some info about Mel Gibson and Sly Stallone and all that up there. If I then execute Reset Edge, again, you see the pop-up. It's sent that down, it's let the client know that an action's been executed, go into Edge, and that's been reset back to the default. If there's a problem with Edge or any other browser, you can reset that from the service desk using this tool, and then they can reconfigure it. What if there's something in there that you want that's not part of the built-in ones? That's where this custom actions comes in. So you can give the action a name and then just a description. The action types right now is PowerShell. That's what I've written in there to support. And then the action content would be the script. Now, this will change. There'll be more controls put in about the return values and stuff. Right now, you can put a script in there, save it as a custom action. You can edit or delete them, and then go back to the connected users, and the available actions will now have your new custom action, and then click execute on that. That will then again use Signal R, send that down to the client. Client will get a toast notification saying this has been executed on your endpoint, and you can see there that that action's been done. And the client itself still works as it normally would, even though it's connected back to server. Finally, the task overview, you can see here it's listing everything that the clients are doing their side. So on the client side, any specific deletions or additions that they're doing as part of the client is logged back up. And everything that's done from the server side and pushed down is also logged in here. And again, all of these are available via the API. So if you need to know what's going on, you can have a script that pulls that data out if you need it. So,
hey, Dave.
Yo.
So there's a thing here about asking about client settings from the server, which you can probably push most settings from the server, but at least for the client to talk back to the server, that would still have to be done via like GPP, GPO, WIM or UAM type stuff, right? But as far as the server IP address and saying yes for the server, can you push everything else down from the server?
Yeah, we could do, but yeah. The long and the short of it is, yeah, but the server address and the connection, no, because you need, so the client needs to be able to talk to the Signal R hub to get that real-time comms going. So once that's there, then yeah, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah, because you get into the chicken and the egg scenario then. So so what you could do, Robin, at a minimum is just set the IP address and to tell it yes for that piece, but then the rest could be done server side. So and then documentation, that's all going to be with a download, correct? All the features?
I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So why PROFiLiX and EEC profile buddy? Again, this guy. So I'd finished writing it. It was all good. Chatting to Kindo again, showed it to him, and he was like, I really like it, but the name is a bit rubbish. And he was like, it makes it sound like a bit of a pet project or a bit of a noddy application. He was like, and it ties you into only the UC side of things. He was like, you need to rename it. So then I went through the code, all the calls, everything, which a bit of a time, decon the old repos and put some new ones up, and hence the reason it's PROFiLiX now and not EUC Profile Bunny. So getting towards the end now, you probably get a bit of time back. So how to get it and what's next. So to get it, the installers aren't on GitHub. They're all going to be as part of a landing page, which Joanne will show you in a minute, on World of EUC. All you need to do is join World of EUC, and it's free. You can download it, use it wherever you want it. The one thing I will say, right now, the point of this is to get feedback on any bugs that it's got, any improvements that you can see. So it's very much put it in development environments, put it in labs, and kick the tires, and let me know what needs doing. And then in 6-8 weeks, we'll have another webinar, and it'll be like, right, this is what was reported, this is what's fixed. Now you can go use it in anger. But you can get it all from the World of EUC. Documentation, I have 2 projects on my blog with the docs on how to install it and what to do. The source code is all on GitHub. If you want to read any of it, look at the unit testing. So the server side, the coverage is quite low at the minute, but the client side, the unit tests are at 100%, or at least they were last time I looked. It's all up there. Feel free to fork it, download it, do what you want with it, really. And then what's next is really up to anyone per se. Like if you want a feature or you want something put in, log it as an issue. And then we can get to it, and maybe somebody else will look at that and go, do you know what? I really like that. I'm going to fork this code. I know a bit of C#. I'm going to write it and set a pull request. And then it might end up in the product. It's kind of a long time ago, we did a similar thing with something around EUC monitoring. And it's just the more people that are involved, the more valuable it's going to become. And finally, this is the last thing from me. There's a few people that I do want to thank. So this guy, again, without him saying, why don't you write this? It wouldn't even be here. It was like, let's do this. And it kind of kickstarted this whole rabbit hole that I ended up going down. Remco has to have a shout because he did the initial abuse, and in his view, less Visual Basic makes the world a better place. But had he not said that, I would not know how to code in C#. And lastly, Andy, he's a brilliant mentor. He's incredibly patient, and he's an incredibly smart guy. And he helped me a lot with C#. He didn't spoon feed me, but he just pointed me in the right direction, let me go. And then he just kept drip feeding like new ideas where it was changing. Something he did say is, let's pay it forward. So we're on here as the World of EUC, and it's a community. He just helped me because it was a nice thing to do. If anyone else wants help, like, I'm not a brilliant developer, but if anyone wants help with it, I'm happy to help. And if anyone else knows, then help others, because it was a real show of community and the whole ethos around it, and why the EUC community is so good. The fact that this went from someone chucking an idea out there, somebody else trying to have a crack at it in a language that he sort of knew, to it being out there in a language that was completely new, is purely because of people within this community. And that is it. I know I'm a little bit early, but it was hard to talk for a full hour on just that.
You're fine. While people are thinking about questions and stuff, I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen.
Yes.
So let me go ahead and share. So where can you get this? You can get this if you go to the worldofeuc.org PROFiLiX. You have to be a member to get it. But most of you probably are on the webinar, so you probably already are members. One thing I just thought of with Dave's thing, and with the whole thing with Andy's mentoring and paying it forward, and and Dave's saying, you know, help each other out. We're all community. There is a dev and scripting channel, a general one in the world of EUC Slack and Discord. Um, as this goes live, and I'll double check with Dave. We'll see what Dave says here right now, but I'm putting him on the spot. I can make a dedicated PROFiLiX channel as well on Slack and Discord, for collaboration and feedback and support there as well. So look forward to that. And Dave, don't sell yourself short, man. This is a great undertaking. Um, to sit down and do this, the resources and the time. So, you know, right here already, you've done an excellent job, and even things here in the chat as well. So don't sell yourself short, and keep working on it, because this is you've done really great so far. So
Thanks. Appreciate it.
other things coming up while we're looking, if anybody has questions, we're still looking at the chat and that. Next week, Dave will be back with us. Dave and Kevin Bacon and myself as moderator. On January 22nd, we will have the webinar for Nutanix AHV for EUC, the 2025 edition. So if you want to know what's all new with Nutanix, especially in EUC space, and what's coming this year, and some nice new features that we've worked on, come back for that on the 22nd. That's on the calendar. And then February 19th, we are going to have a 0 to non-persistent desktops in 60 minutes webinar as well. So make sure you look at our calendar. All the events are out there. So if you go to worldofeuc.org/events, all of our upcoming calendar is there for any kind of events, webinars, and so forth. I also want to let you guys know, we had EUC World Independence last year in Silver Spring, Maryland, our first multi-day big conference. We are bringing that back again with EUC World Amplify. We are also moving to the middle of the states. So it's going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, August 4th through the 7th. Based on the feedback, based on, you know, just talking with everybody from last year's event, we've added more time to the event and built some more things into it. We've also increased the length of the sessions, both the lightning sessions, which were 15 minutes. Now they're community sessions. They're 30 minutes, and the full technical sessions that were 45 minutes are now 60 minutes. So we've added more time to those sessions. We do have a super early bird going on right now, so it's $100 if you want to attend, and that ends today. And then it will start doing our regular early bird pricing next week. Also, too, if you want to present, we have call for papers open. So if you go to the website as well, you can submit a topic. We are still going and leaving that open for anyone who wants to speak, whether it's a community session or the full length session. You know, if you have anything you want to talk about, anything you want to present, if you want to present with somebody, if you want to get into presenting, you can do that. We are all here to support you. Like Dave said, it's a community, and we all like to pay it forward and help, you know, raise the community and work with the community. The links are in the chat. Thank you, Jennifer, for both the landing page and for the paper call. And with that, thank you for attending. We still have time. Any questions? You know, still feel free to ask. Let me see. John said, what's tomorrow's non-early bird price for anyone that needs to leverage that to get it out the door today? $150. So you have until the end of today. When the clock strikes midnight on Saturday, it will be $150. So it's going to increase $50, and that will be the early bird pricing that we had last year, the same. So because we have longer runway this year, we decided to have a super early bird pricing for a week. But tomorrow it goes up to 150, and then it goes to the same tiers that you saw last year as far as the early bird, midnight, and what time zone. Good question, San. So we're gonna say midnight Pacific time, I guess, or Eastern time. Midnight Eastern time. But you know, so to go ahead and get it in, you still have plenty of time. So you have what, about 14 hours still then? Or no, I'm sorry, 13. I'm in central time zone. 13 hours. So our platform is set to Eastern time. You vote IST. Isn't IST already set for tomorrow? Or that's already tomorrow, or getting close there. Like I know Kingdo is already on Saturday, so
Yeah.
it's the early Saturday hours for him. But yeah, any other questions? We still have a few minutes here. If not, thank you, Dave. Look forward to the channel for PROFiLiX being set up in the Discord and Slack instances. That'll be done by the end of the weekend. Because I got to do some bridge maintenance to get that done. But yeah, jump on the channel. Feel free to ask, reach out. Community. Anything else you want to say, Dave, before we wrap things up?
Nothing, just thanks for having me. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right. Well, there's no more questions coming in, so we'll give you back a few minutes of your time. Everyone, enjoy your weekend. If you haven't joined the Slack or Discord, that information's on the website as well for all the real-time community collaboration and support.